Well, well, well. The attorney for President Trump's former lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen, now walking back some bombshell statements he's made over the last few weeks. Lanny Davis has been a source for media reports claiming that the president knew beforehand about that infamous June 2016 Trump Tower meeting. But Davis now backpedaling, saying recently that Cohen maybe didn't have any information about the meeting, and told Fox News earlier today, quote, "I should have been much clearer that I could not confirm the story. I take the responsibility for not communicating more clearly my uncertainty. I regret the error." Davis also softening his claims that Michael Cohen might have told Robert Mueller, that the president was aware of Russian hacking in the 2016 election, now telling the Washington Post there's, quote, a possibility that that might be the case, but he's not sure. Wow. So should Michael Cohen find a more credible lawyer? Let me bring in the editor-in-chief of the Daily Caller, Chris Bedford, and former criminal defense attorney Emily Compagno. Guys, thanks for being here.
Good evening.
Thank you.
All right, Chris. So this is quite a climb down from Lanny Davis, and his original claims about what his client knew or supposedly knew got lots and lots of treatment in the media. It was covered all over the place, and now this walk back is perhaps getting more muted coverage. Is this an example where Team Trump can accurately cry fake news?
Absolutely. He has walked it back, and he has apologized, but the place that reported it first, probably using him as one of their sources, CNN, they haven't changed anything. Their article hasn't been updated all month, and he's been walking this back ever since his client, Michael Cohen's plead out last week, because we basically know that Michael Cohen threw anything he possibly could against prosecutors to try and cut a deal and say, all right, I'll tell you what I know, just get me out of this, just get me out of this. And all he really knew, or all he could accuse, and we'll see if he has proof, is that President Trump may have committed campaign finance violations. If he had anything about the Russians, he would have had to have used it then. And Lanny Davis has been walking it back bit by bit by bit. And so far, I haven't seen anyone in the media who's actually reported on this in the first time affix any updates to say, actually, this has been unsubstantiated by the number one suspect, the number one witness.
Yeah, and actually CNN earlier tonight saying that they stand by the report, even though one of the sources of the story is recanting, which I think is an interesting choice. I'll put it that way. Emily, I want to come to you on a separate topic, same general subject matter, though. Alan Dershowitz, of course, the famed law professor, was on Fox and Friends earlier today, and he made this point about the legal jeopardy that he sees for President Trump. Maybe not Mueller and Russia, but something else. Take a listen, then I want your reaction.
If I were Trump's lawyers, I'd be focusing all of my defense efforts on the Southern District and let the Mueller probe go. I don't think it's going anywhere, but the Southern District raises some real red flags for Trump's businesses.
So the New York-based investigation into Trump's businesses is what Dershowitz says is the red flag here. Do you agree with that?
I do agree with that, and I want to point out for viewers why exactly. Essentially, the more complex the assets you have, the more complex your businesses are, the more that your liability is, the more your exposure is. And here's why. I've seen in the same case, prosecutors prosecute a $35,000 tax evasion, but fail to prosecute a $3.85 million embezzlement because that embezzlement was immunized. But they failed to accept even a plea deal for putting that person behind bars. And the point is the greater fish that they were seeking. It's the more unconscionable person in their eyes that they're targeting. And the amount, as Dershowitz phrased it, he said, you know, the average person commits 3 felonies a day. And that's based on a book. And it's funny, I cite that all the time because it's so true. And partly to blame is our overregulation and super complex tax code. So even if you're not part of some big fraud organization that's undertaking these plots over a cauldron, it still doesn't mean that you're liable for overstating income or understating your deficits as you seek loans, as you report your income, as you think you comply with the tax code. So simply by sheer volume of what Trump has, that is partly why his exposure here is so high, in addition to clearly the Southern District of New York's targeting him in their activity.
Chris, very quickly, tomorrow DOJ official Bruce Orr is going to be on Capitol Hill under oath, under testimony, delivering testimony. In your view, quickly, what do you think is the most important piece of information that Republicans should try to pry out of him?
Who knew what when? Rod Rosenstein said he had no idea that Bruce Ohr had been working on the Trump dossier and on the Trump investigation. He didn't have permission to. He should have recused himself because of his wife, and he was. So who knew what? Is Rod Rosenstein lying? And if he's not lying, who assigned it, and who actually knew in the DOJ this guy who had connections to the Steele Group and the dossier was working for the FBI against President Donald Trump?
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Chris, Emily, thank you both very much.
Thank you.